What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you the changes and updates to my Dinosaur deck. Not a lot happened to the Dinosaur archetype on its own, but with the addition of a brand new sub-archetype called DinoWrestlers, the deck gained a brand new perspective and a brand new playstyle that I'm honestly really loving, and it works almost perfectly with the Lost World dinosaurs too. Let's take a closer look. Starting off with the monster lineup, we have a playset of Baby Sarasaurus. When it's destroyed by a card effect and sent to the grave, you can special summon any level 4 or lower dino from your deck, and there's plenty to pick from. This card is absolutely warranted at 3 in my opinion. 1 Jurak Gallum, an oddball tuner monster that I use only for one specific synchro monster and one specific link monster, but if he's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can destroy the monster that destroyed it, but your opponent can negate this effect by discarding a card from their hand. I also put 1 copy of Petite Ranodon in because now, thanks to DinoWrestlers being included, they have a brand new pull target. It's basically Baby Sarasaurus, except this card pulls a level 4 or higher dinosaur and prevents it from attacking the turn it was played. 2 DinoWrestler Stegosaur. If it's special summoned, I can add any DinoWrestler monster or World Dino Wrestling from my deck to my hand. And during the end phase, if it's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn and my opponent controls more monsters than I do, I can target a DinoWrestler monster in my graveyard except Stego and special summon it, but I can only use each of these effects once per turn. 2 Giant Rex. I've been going back and forth about whether or not 1 or 2 is necessary, but I'm more comfortable running 2. It can't attack directly, but if it's banished, you can special summon it, and if you do, it gains 200 attack for each of your banished dinosaurs, though this effect's only once per turn. Miscellaneousaurus, arguably the most powerful resource-style dinosaur monster the archetype has. During either player's main phase, you can send it from your hand to the grave, and during this main phase, the dinosaur monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's activated card effects. And you can banish any number of dinosaur-type monsters from your graveyard, including this card, to special summon a dinosaur monster from your deck with a level equal to the total numbers of monsters banished, but you have to destroy it during the end phase. Now each of these effects are once per turn, but that's incredibly powerful resource and protection all put into one card. It's no wonder they put it to 1. A playset of Soul-Eating Oviraptor. If it's normal or special summoned, you can take any dinosaur-type monster from your deck and either put it in your hand or send it to the grave. And you can also target 1 level 4 or lower dino on the field, other than itself, destroy it, then special summon a dino from your graveyard in defense. Going into the big boys, we've got 3 DinoWrestler Pankratops. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon him from your hand, but you can only do this once per turn. And as a quick effect, you can tribute a DinoWrestler monster, not just him, target a card your opponent controls, destroying it. 1 Overtext Quatless, though to be honest, I am considering bumping it to 2 because its effects are quite useful. It cannot be normal summoned or set, and it can only be special summoned from your hand by shuffling 5 of your banished dinosaur monsters into the main deck, which is not impossible to do. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you can destroy a dinosaur monster in your hand or face up on your field, and if you do, you negate the activation and destroy it. And if this card's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add any Evolution Pill spell from your deck to your hand. And 2 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. It cannot be normal summoned or set, and it must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 2 dinos from your graveyard. Now once per turn during either player's main phase, you can destroy a monster in your hand or on your field, and if you do, all face-up monsters your opponent controls go face down. In addition, this card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a defense position monster, you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent, and if you do, you send that defense position monster straight to the graveyard. Next we move into the spell cards. Starting with a playset of Cult by the Grave. I know we're slowly rotating out of the hand trap meta, but right now they're still prevalent enough, as well as graveyard-based monster effects, that this card is still absolutely warranted in 3. 1 Dark Hole, actually completely warranted due to Baby Sarah and Petite Ranodon. 2 Double Evolution Pill. I was considering cutting this to 1, but 2 is actually the perfect number for my build. It banishes a dinosaur and a non-dinosaur from your hand or indoor graveyard, and special summons a level 7 or higher dinosaur monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. As you can see, the main deck has 0 non-dinosaur monsters, and that's completely up to the extra deck, which is why I'm okay with this card only being at 2. If there were any non-dinos in the main, I'd be bumping this to 3 in a heartbeat. 1 Foolish Burial, mainly just to dump the Giant Rex or the Overtext. 3 Fossil Dig, searching any level 6 or lower dinosaur monster. 1 Gold Sark, mostly just to get the giant Rex out of my main deck in the event that I happen to get it soon enough. 3. Lost World. All monsters except for dinosaurs lose 500 attack and defense. Once per turn during either player's turn, if a dinosaur-type monster is normal or special summoned, you can special summon a Jura Egg token to your opponent's side of the field in defense. And while your opponent controls a token, they cannot target monsters on the field with card effects except tokens. And once per turn, if a normal monster or monsters on the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect, like the token, you can destroy that many dinosaur-type monsters in your hand or deck instead, which sets off all the baby Sarasaurus and Petite Ranodon effects, as well as one of those Stego effects if you decide to drop it as well. 1 Monster Reborn, and 2 Terraforming, exclusively to search the Lost Worlds. And finishing up with the track cards, I'm keeping it incredibly minimal and sticking with 1 Solemn Warning and 3 Torrential Tribute. Moving on. Next we move into the side deck, and I'm going to be honest with you, the side deck is going to start looking a lot more generic across all my decks. First off, we have 3 copies of Herald of the Abyss, what I consider to be the Kaiju in spell form. You pay 1,500 points and declare a monster type and attribute. Your opponent must send a monster they control with a declared type and attribute from their side of the field to the graveyard if possible. And for the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with that sent monster's name. So it has Call by the Grave built right into it, but it's more the fact that it can eliminate most problematic monsters that cannot be removed from the field by normal means. 3 Shared Ride. After this card resolves, each time your opponent adds a card or cards from their deck or graveyard to their hand, except by drawing them, you immediately get to draw a card. I keep questioning whether or not this card is worth running in my side decks, but a lot of people have told me that it's worthwhile, whether it be a combo deck or a control deck. 3 Twin Twisters, and there's plenty of cards I can discard with this effect. 3 Rivalry of Warlords. Floodgate that just says each player can only control 1 type of monster at a time. Now my main deck is completely dinosaur type, so that really doesn't do much to me. This mostly affects my extra deck plays, which are essentially optional for this deck anyways. 1 Solemn Judgment, sorry. And 2 Solemn Strike. And finally, we finish up with the extra deck. I run 2 copies of Jurac Meteor, though to be honest I'm considering cutting it down to 1, just because there's a new 10-star Time Lord Synchro coming in that I might be teching around with. When it's Synchro summoned, you destroy all cards on the field. Then you can special summon a tuner monster from your graveyard. 3 Evolzar Dolka. During either player's turn, when a monster effect activates, you can attach a material, negate it, and if you do, destroy it. 3 Evolzar Logia. During either player's turn, when a monster would be normal or special summoned, or a spell trap is activated, you can attach 2 materials, negate the summoner activation, and if you do, destroy that card. 3 Reprodochus. Generic Link 2 Link monster. I think it's starting to show more relevance now that, Cyberstein has been released from the ban list. You can activate one of these effects per turn and declare 1 monster type or attribute. All monsters that this card points to become the same type or attribute until the end of the turn. I just mainly use it as a means of getting rid of cards I don't need anymore. Then we have the triad of generic Link 2 monsters, Dual Chimera, Mrs. Radiant, and Wee Witch's Apprentice. They all share very similar effects. They require 2 monsters of the same attribute as them to be summoned, and all monsters of the same attribute of them gain 500 attack and defense, but all monsters that are their opposites lose 400 attack and defense. And if they would happen to be destroyed, they add a monster of the same attribute as them from the graveyard back to the owner's hand. And 1 copy of DinoWrestler King T-Rexel, a Link monster I barely ever play right now. If it battles, your opponent cannot activate spell traps until the end of the damage step, your opponent's monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this, and at the start of your opponent's battle phase, you can target an attack position monster your opponent controls, and this battle phase your opponent cannot attack with other monsters until that one has first, and if it does not attack, you destroy it at the end of the battle phase. And that is the deck. As you can clearly tell, the Lost World Dinosaur recipe is mostly still there, just changing out a couple of the tech cards for the DinoWrestler 5-card engine, if you can even call it that really. And while the DinoWrestler engine is basically just those 5 cards, it is incredibly powerful and potent and consistent, despite all possible odds. Now looking into the direct future of the DinoWrestler archetype and other dinosaur monsters, there really isn't a lot of good ones coming in, but I am looking forward to continuing to improve this deck and make it even more powerful than it already is. Now I should mention that I have been looking into a new time-based theme to put into this deck slot, being Time Thieves. But since their first wave of support is really subpar right now, there is no risk of this deck going anywhere right now. I'm going to be waiting until the next wave, or possibly the wave after if it gets a third, before I even consider the possibility of building that deck over Dinos. But it is something that I'm looking into for those of you that were curious. I thank you guys for watching the deck profile, and if you can think of any ways that I can improve this Dinosaur deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.